At Don Tyson School of Innovation, we believe that every student should be engaged in challenging courses where they are cultivating a growth mindset, where improvement and growth is a focus, where students are able to be risk takers and students are receiving continual feedback to be reflective about what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses in each class. And at the core, learning is the focus and learning is the emphasis. And because of these reasons, we believe that our practices and our grading practices should reflect these same core values. And this is why we are transitioning to a competency-based grading model. And so this video is going to try and talk about what is competency-based grading, how are grades calculated, and how this compares with the traditional model of grading. So CBG, or competency-based grading, really places an emphasis on what a student knows and how they demonstrate their level of learning. So the emphasis is shifting from just students being compliant to what does the student know? And we want grades to reflect that, their level of learning. It should be clear and provide feedback as to how a student can get better and improve, and what areas are their strengths and their weaknesses. And so at the core, there's a couple of principles that we want to talk about. One is that each class that is implementing competency-based grading is going to have specific learning goals that are skills-based and measured by student evidence tied back directly to the standards. Now, those learning goals are going to be very specific and they will come alongside with rubrics with each one of those learning goals. And those rubrics are going to be created to establish clarity as to how the learning goal can be met. So students will know what is expected of them to meet the learning goal. It will outline those skills and what is required. And it's going to reflect the following four categories. So here we have the exceeding, that's the highest, meeting, approaching, and beginning. So these are the four categories that these rubrics will reflect, and students will be receiving one of those areas where they are currently at for each learning goal. Now there is a fifth, which is either a no attempt, because the student has not provided any evidence or has not attempted anything, or insufficient evidence, meaning they have not shown any progress or anything that can really even count as the beginning stages towards the learning goal. So let's look at a couple of specific things. One is a sample learning goal rubric. So up here at the top of this, you're going to see this is the learning goal, where it says students will be able to construct linear functions from multiple representations. So this is a math example. So each of your classes that has competency-based grading within it, they are then going to go from this learning goal and develop a rubric that outlines what's the expectations of each criteria. So here at the meeting level, this is kind of the foundational piece, because this is what is meeting this goal. So I can construct the linear functions, and then it even goes into the specifics of that. So you can see there are four, really multiple representations means these four representations. So it gets clear. So students know what is expected of them. And this is a great talking point for feedback from teachers to students. And so it even provides the specific, different criteria underneath that for the approaching and for the beginning levels. There's also the exceeding level. So the exceeding level is not just extra, it's not extra work. It is still the same learning goal, but what it's doing is that a student who reaches the exceeding level is able to take this goal and show a deep level, a depth of knowledge that is really getting into the creation, the application of the goal, where they can apply it to new situations, or they can design and present their own understanding. And so that exceeding is just a deeper level of knowledge. So how do these then translate for grades? So we still have to report grades on a percentage or something that's going to work for transcripts. And so these will then be converted, and you'll see this in your Schoology account, from the exceeding. So if a student reaches the exceeding level, that's going to be the equal of a 100%. So that's obviously an A. So 100% is exceeding. If they're at the meeting level, that's very good. We are very proud of that. That's great work by the student. It's almost at A level, so it's an 88% B. Approaching goes further, that's a 75, and beginning is a 60. If it would be an F if there is insufficient evidence or no attempt. And so those grades, whatever you're seeing your student at, is going to then translate to these specific percentages for those learning goals. So then how are the final grades then calculated? Well, let's look at an example. So this student had 5 learning goals within let's say that this was one semester. And that's going to vary by class. That could be very different in some classes. This is just an example of what you may see. So this student, and it shows where they are at in each of those learning goals. So you can see that, learning goal 1, they're meeting. Learning goal 2, they're approaching. One of the benefits of this grading model is that a student can really be reflective, and it provides clear feedback. So if I'm student A, I'm looking at these and I'm going, I really need to get better at learning goal 5. That's my weakness, and I need to go back and I need to work on that. I can improve, and if I show improvement and I can demonstrate a higher level of understanding, my grade is able to be changed because we want our grades to reflect what students know. And so, what we're going to do is that from each of these learning goals, they have their grade. Then all the learning goal grades, that's where they are then averaged together to receive the semester grade. So if you did that with these values, you would be at an 82.2%. So student A, based on these scores for these learning goals, would receive an 82.2 in this class. So let's wrap this up. What's changing and what stays the same? What is changing is the way that we're giving feedback. So students are now receiving feedback based on this kind of 4-point, not really 4 points, but 4 levels of criteria. And what's staying the same is that at the end of the day, the students are still receiving a letter grade at the semester. They're going to get an A, B, C, D, or an F. So what's changing is that 4 level criteria is providing very specific feedback as to how the student is progressing in each of their learning goals. And so those levels are then translated to those percentages that we talked about. Exceeding is a 100, meeting 88, and so on. What stays the same is that the letter grades, an A is still a 90 to a 100. So when you average those learning goal grades together, if your grade falls between a 90 and a 100, that's an A. If it's an 80 to an 89, that's a B. What changes is that a student is measured by their competency or their demonstration, whatever they have shown in their evidence as to each of the learning goals. It is truly reflective upon the student's demonstration of their learning. That's how grades are being calculated now. But what's staying the same is that a student's GPA is still calculated on a 4.0 scale. So it is completely goes along with what the traditional model of what colleges are looking for in their transcripts. There's still the increased weight for AP courses based on the 5-point scale. And so this is really going to be, we believe, a great transition because students will be receiving very clear feedback and their evidence tied directly to those learning goals is going to really be reflective in their grades as to what they know and what they've learned. So hopefully this helps. And please feel free to ask teachers and administrators any questions you may have about competency-based grading. So thank you.